It was a cold, rainy evening when Julia pulled into her driveway after a long shift at the hospital. Exhausted and drenched, she was looking forward to nothing more than a warm shower and a quiet evening in her cozy suburban home. But as she stepped out of her car, something unusual caught her attention. At the far corner of her driveway, beside the garage, sat a figure hunched over and wrapped in a tattered blanket. She instinctively paused, her heart tugged by the sight. The man looked disoriented, cold, and hungry, but there was a calmness in his posture, an almost dignified stillness that didn't match his ragged appearance. Julia cautiously approached, her voice soft but assertive. "Sir, are you okay?" The man looked up slowly, revealing tired but kind eyes. "I'm just trying to get through the night," he replied with a faint smile. "I'll be gone by morning, I promise." She hesitated. Letting a stranger, let alone one who appeared homeless, into her property wasn't a decision to take lightly. But something about him seemed different. Not threatening, human, vulnerable, and despite everything, there was a gentle wisdom in his voice, as if life had taught him more than most ever learn. "Would you like to sleep in the garage?" she offered, surprising even herself. The man blinked, unsure if he had heard her right. "I don't want to be any trouble." "It's no trouble. I'll bring you a blanket and something hot to drink." He nodded, eyes glistening. "Thank you, truly." Julia brought out a thermos of tea, a pillow, and a thick blanket. Before she returned inside, she turned and said, "My name's Julia, by the way." "I'm Ben," he replied. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her mind kept circling around the stranger in her garage. What was his story? How had he ended up on the streets? And why did she feel such a strange sense of familiarity and peace around him? Morning arrived with golden sunlight and the soft chirping of birds. Julia got up early, half expecting to find Ben gone. But as she opened the garage, there he was, sitting upright, sipping the remainder of the tea, and reading a paperback book she didn't remember placing there. "Good morning," he greeted with a smile that warmed the room more than the heater could. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. "Well enough," he nodded. "Better than I have in weeks." Julia offered him breakfast, eggs, toast, and coffee, which he accepted with grateful politeness. As they sat on her porch, Ben told her bits of his story. He had once been a businessman, owned companies, traveled the world. But after a series of personal tragedies, his wife's death, the loss of his only child, a betrayal by a business partner, he gave up everything. He walked away from the noise and the riches, searching for something real. Julia listened, moved by the quiet depth in his voice, the gentle way he spoke of pain without bitterness. "Why didn't you go back? You clearly had the means." Ben shrugged. "Sometimes life strips you down so you can remember who you are. And sometimes, when you lose everything, you find something greater." Over the next few days, Julia found herself looking forward to their conversations. She offered Ben small tasks around the yard, and he took them with grace, fixing her broken gate, repainting the fence, helping her neighbor carry groceries. Everyone who met him sensed something special, something healing. Then, one afternoon, a black SUV pulled up in front of her house. A sharply dressed man stepped out, looking around anxiously. When he spotted Ben, he rushed forward. "Sir, we've been looking for you for weeks." Ben stood, unfazed. "David, I told you to stop searching." Julia looked between them, confused. David turned to her. "You don't know who this is, do you?" He told me his name is Ben, she said slowly. "This is Benjamin Hartwell, founder of Hartwell Global, one of the most influential philanthropists and investors in the country." Julia's jaw dropped. She stared at Ben, at Benjamin, with new eyes. But he looked exactly the same. Calm, humble, wise. "I didn't lie," Ben said softly. "I just didn't give you everything. Because I didn't want to be seen as a wallet or a title. I wanted to be seen as a man." David urged him to return. There were meetings, decisions, and people waiting. But Ben turned to Julia. "Would you walk with me?" he asked. They walked to the park, side by side, as the sun dipped into golden hues. Ben confessed that in all his travels and accomplishments, he'd never felt more peace than he had during his time in Julia's modest home. "You didn't see me as someone broken or someone powerful. You just saw me." Julia smiled. "Maybe that's all any of us want." A few days later, Ben left. He promised to return, but his departure left a quiet ache in Julia's chest. Life resumed, hospital shifts, gardening, neighbors waving, but something had changed. The world felt bigger, fuller. Then, 2 months later, a package arrived. Inside was a letter and a deed. Dear Julia, it began. You gave me shelter when I had none. You gave me dignity when I had forgotten my own. I have created a foundation in your name, the Julia Grace Shelter, offering housing, education, and medical care to the homeless. But that's not all. Enclosed is the deed to your house, now paid in full. I want you to live freely, the way you helped me feel free. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she read his words. The letter ended with, I told you I was looking for something real. I found it in your kindness. From that day on, Julia's home became more than a house. It became a sanctuary. Volunteers came, donations poured in, and the Julia Grace Shelter grew into a beacon of hope. And though Ben never returned in person, his presence was everywhere, in the laughter of the children playing in the yard, in the warmth of the beds given to those in need, and in the simple truth that one act of compassion can change a life forever. Years later, Julia was interviewed by a journalist covering the shelter's expansion. They asked her, did you know he was a millionaire when you let him stay? She smiled. I didn't care. What mattered was he was human. And that was enough. That one rainy night became a turning point, not just for a man once lost in sorrow, but for a woman who believed in kindness without conditions. And together, through a brief and unexpected connection, they built something that outlived both titles and fortunes. They built hope.